"Oh, Reuben, you finally arrived. I've been so long waiting for you. You've been gone for months. How was your travels?" "Wonderful, wonderful. I heard your caravan was getting in soon, but I didn't know exactly when. It's so good to have you come and visit. I remember when you left. It was a terrifying time, just shortly before Pharaoh Necho invaded. And I was frightened for you. I took a sacrifice, and I went to the temple, and I prayed for hours for your safety, that the Almighty would bring you back to us, would bring you back to visit. And he did. This day, the Almighty has granted that request." I also remember when King Josiah left, took the army to face Necho, to fight. I went and prayed that day as well. I took an offering, and so did thousands of others. We crowded the temple and begged for God's mercy and protection for our gracious king. That request, God chose not to fulfill. And you weren't here for the time when King Josiah came back wounded and died here in Jerusalem. The mourning, the weeping that took place. Why God took that man from him, from us, I will never understand. And now King Jehoiakim, how he could be the son of the great King Josiah, I do not know. The wickedness, the injustice in our land, there is no justice. The nobles get away with anything they want. The courts are rife with bribery. Remember Tova? Yes, the lady. How could you forget Tova? We spent many, many meals, ate her bread. Remember the pot you broke? We broke, mostly you. we thought our life was done as kids, and we smashed this valuable pot. And she knew who did it. Never told anybody. To this day, she has never acknowledged she knew that we smashed her pot. What a lady. She's like my own grandmother. She still lived in that house till recently. The house her great-grandfather built. It's been passed down for generations, that land. She has no children, no other relatives. And, you weren't here for this, but her husband died not too long ago. And she had to sell her house and her land, her family inheritance, to pay for the bills, the debts he left. Remember Joab? Yeah, the kid you never liked. Well, he's wealthy now. And he offered to buy her house. Said, I'll buy your house, stay there rent-free the rest of your life. You never liked Joab, and you were right. You had more sense than I did about Joab. He's wealthy. He's done well for himself. Not for others, but for himself. Just a month or so ago, I met Tova in the marketplace. Saw her, went over to say hi, to greet her. Before I got to her, Joab marched up to her and said, "I need the rent money." And she looked at him with tears in her eyes, and she said, "You told me that I could live in my house for the rest of my life." And Joab said, "No, I never said that." She said, "I have a contract that says that." And he said, "You're a fake. I want the rent money by the end of the week or you're out." Well, she collapsed in tears. He marched away. I went to her and comforted her and said, "Look, you have a contract. We'll take it to court. We'll deal with it. It'll be okay." So we met. I took her to court, and we met the day that we were scheduled to be there. And we walk into court, and there's Joab talking to the judge. And we watch as he openly hands him a bag of money. He smirked at us and walked back and sat down, and the judge looked at Tova silently for a few seconds. When it was obvious she wasn't going to bribe him, he said, "Look, this contract is not valid. You'll be out by the end of the week, and furthermore, for wasting the court's time, he imposed a heavy fine on her, and she has nothing. I've opened my house to her. She can stay here for a while, but we don't have room. I don't know what she's going to do." And there are hundreds like her in Jerusalem. There is no justice in this land. Reuben, I'm sorry. You didn't come to hear our problems. What do you want to do here in Jerusalem? Oh, the temple, of course. Of course you want to visit the temple. One of the wonders of the world. Yes. But it's not like it was. You remember it in its heyday. I'll tell you. Just last week, I went to the temple to pray, and I saw a poor man. I don't know his name. I know him a little bit. He brought an offering, a simple offering, something very plain. It was some grain and some oil in gratitude to God. He'd saved. I knew him well enough to know he had to have saved for months to be able to afford this offering. He brought it to the temple, and surely that's an offering God would love, out of a heart of gratitude. He brought it to the temple, and the priest took it, he looked at it, he threw it on the ground, he said, that is an insult to this house. Leave until you can bring something worthy of this house. That's what the temple has become. The priests care nothing for people, they care nothing for God. It's no wonder the temple's almost deserted. Few people go there. High places, pagan altars to Baal and to Moloch and to the horrible deities of the Canaanites and all the surrounding pagan lands are crowded, and the temple's deserted. And I'll tell you, I almost understand it. No, I'm sorry. I should not say that. Forgive me for those words, but I would rather perish than forsake Yahweh. But there are times I have come to understand those who do. There's perversion, there's injustice, there's iniquity, there's violence all around us. And I've struggled with that. In the darkness of this land, in the darkness of my own soul, trying to come to grips with the horror of the world around us, I felt the pull away from God, but I've chosen to turn to Him, not from Him. It weighed on me until finally I could handle it no longer. I went to pray and to face God, not to the temple. There's wicked there as anywhere else. Went to the Watchtower. Yeah, the place I've gone since a kid when I want to be alone. Went to the Watchtower, and I sat in the evening in the darkness. I don't know if I prayed or not. I don't know if you can call it a prayer. I accused the Almighty. I accused Him of not caring. I accused Him of ignoring us. I accused Him of breaking His promises to us and to our Father. It wasn't a prayer. It was a yell. But listen, I have prayed thousands of times in silence. I have prayed thousands of times using holy words, beautiful words of praise, and meant them to silence. A holy silence sometimes, a silence of awe, sometimes a comforting, warm silence, sometimes just silence. But always I have prayed into silence. That day, why I will never understand, the Almighty answered me. Why? Why that? Why when I accused Him to His face of lying, of ignoring us, why that day did He answer me? The only answer I can come up with for that is this. That day I was absolute to praise Him, to thank Him. I was struggling with the bleakest darkness I had ever faced. But that day, I spoke from the depths of my soul. And maybe that's what He wants. Maybe what the Almighty really wants is for us to speak to Him honestly. With everything. And when there's no praise, no gratitude in our heart, we needn't fake it. We can speak what we really want, what we really feel. He answered me that day on the Watchtower. Oh, but if I thought His answer would bring peace to my heart, I was wrong. What He said was, I am going to send the Chaldeans to punish wickedness. The Chaldeans. Reuben, you know what they do. You've seen lands after they've passed through it. They slaughter whole towns just for fun. They're like fishermen who catch 1,000 fish, eat one or two, and leave the rest in rotting, stinking piles. The Chaldeans, the Babylonians, Then they go back to Babylon and they sacrifice to Marduk, to Nergal, to their awful heathen deities in gratitude for their help in their slaughter. The Chaldeans. Jerusalem is a paragon of virtue compared to the Chaldeans. And I said, God, you cannot do that. You cannot accept evil. How can you allow wickedness? How can you use those who are far worse than your people to punish your people? And there was silence. He didn't answer me. And in that silence, the doubt I had raged like a roaring lion, like a screaming eagle threatening to devour me. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been in a place where everything you believe, everything you've ever loved and hoped for and hung your whole life on is brought into question and you struggle in the darkness with doubt, with fear, and in silence? That's what happened to me that day. But the only way to settle doubts is in the light. And what God's non-answer did, what God's answer and then refusal to answer later did, was brought my doubts out of darkness, out of where it had hidden them. I didn't want to acknowledge them. I smoothed them over. I shoved them in corners. And I refused to acknowledge them. And God's answer and his silence brought those out into the light. It's the only way to handle doubt. It's the only way to handle doubt is to bring it out, to face it, and to look at it in the face, in the light of God's word. And what I realized, as God forced me to that point, what I realized was this. My doubts, my questions were not about the circumstances, the people. My questions were about him. What if God, what if Yahweh, what if the Almighty, the master of the universe, is no better than a pagan god delighting in slaughter? We've been raised to believe that God is just and loving and caring and faithful to his covenant. What if it's wrong? What if he's not like that at all? What if the surrounding culture around us is right about who God is? What then? And there was doubt, overwhelming doubt in the darkness, in the silence. But where there's doubt, there's possibility. Where there's doubt, there's hope. And I clung to that hope. I struggled. It was a thread. It was just a thread. But I clung to it. And I waited. I waited on my watchtower. I went back to the next day. Every chance I had, I went to that watchtower to wait and to listen to the silence, hoping somehow God would answer. And one night, it was just about over. One night, I didn't think I could hold on to that thread any longer. The silence was overwhelming. I sat in the darkness and I listened to the infinite echoing silence of heaven. And I heard a wind. I didn't feel wind. There was no movement in the trees. I heard wind, and on that wind, a voice. A quiet voice that seemed to shake the very foundations of Jerusalem. And here's what God said to me. He said, Habakkuk, write this down. Make it simple, make it clear, so that anyone who reads it can memorize it and spread it. Here is the answer. My justice may take time, but it will come. I'm not ignoring wickedness. I'm not ignoring you. It will come. I know the Chaldeans are wicked. I know the Babylonians are wicked. They're wicked, and they keep advancing in wickedness because they're always unsatisfied. They think the next conquest will bring them satisfaction, and it never does. The time's going to come that what they've done will be done to them. Those whom they trust will turn on them. Those they've conquered will conquer them. The lands they've plundered and mocked will mock them. Wickedness will always be punished. It may take a long time. It may look like it will never happen, but wickedness will always be punished. They will drink the cup they've filled. Every person, whether Jew or Chaldean or anyone, is filling a cup, and they'll drink of their own cup. Yes, they've built cities, they've built houses by bloodshed, by injustice, by violence, but the very walls of those houses will testify against them. And their wealth will be burned up. And in that day, in that coming day, the knowledge of God will be like an ocean filling the entire world. In that day, they will realize that their idols are useless. The gods they worship, that they give their lives to, are more helpless than they are. They created their gods, and their gods can do less than they can themselves. So he said, Habakkuk, here is my message. Justice will come. All will know God. And in the meantime, live by faith. God is not blind. My heart swelled within me. This was the answer I needed. I would never have reached that answer had I not walked through that doubt. But when God answered, it satisfied. My heart was lifted up. God is not blind. God is not unjust. God is not uncaring. He has a plan. The silence I heard was not the silence of heaven. It was the silence of earth waiting before the righteous judge, waiting for him to step into action. And through all of that, through that whole plan of the ages, his plan to punish the wickedness of Judea, his plan to punish the wickedness of the Chaldeans, his plan to deal with wickedness of all ages. In the middle of that, he gave me the secret to life. Live by faith. So Reuben, I know Babylonians are going to invade, and it's going to be horrible. I know the time will come when the Babylonians will be invaded, and it will be horrible. But if I live through it, if everything we have, our crops, our animals, our land, everything's wiped away, we are left in the midst of waste and barrenness with nothing around us, even then, I will trust the Lord. Even then, my strength will come from the Lord. Even then, to the end of my days, I will live by faith.
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.